Hello and welcome to the Cathedral of Speed, Monza on the outskirts of Milan in Italy for the penultimate round of the 2019 TCR Europe Series. A very good afternoon, good evening wherever you are. It's Mark James in the commentary box once again for the final two races of the season, one today and one just before lunchtime tomorrow, which will wrap up the Drivers' Championship. Teams Championship has already been decided. That, unsurprisingly enough, went to target competition, having run 5 cars during the year, 3 of their drivers having tasted victory. So surprise, surprise, target competition having already wrapped up the Teams Championship. But the drivers' title, a very different matter. Coming into this race here in Monza, 3 drivers were in with a mathematical chance of the series, and that, after qualifying this morning, has now reduced to 2. So that story to come. 33 cars entered for this final race weekend, the 7th race weekend of the season. 2 non-starters. You may have seen an entry list online on social media earlier in the year. The 2 non-starters, Alex Morgan in the Cupra. Alex Morgan, of course, the race winner earlier in the season, winning race 2 in Oschersleben, having started the year in the Renault. And Zsolt Szabo, also a non-starter this weekend in the second of the Mira Racing Hyundais. So from 35 that you may have seen earlier in the week, we are down to 33. There are the final 3. Dan Lloyd, double race winner so far this year, bringing up the rear of the order in car 1, 2, 3. But a busy old grid, 33 cars to talk about over the 2 races, all being well. Something like 17 countries represented on the grid this weekend. 7 car brands, that's remained pretty stationary throughout the season, to be honest. This weekend we have 4 Audis, 5 Cupras, 6 Hondas, 9 Hyundais, 4 Peugeots, just the 1 Renault, and 4 Volkswagen Golfs. That'll hopefully add up to 33 if I've done my sums correctly. But all of that pales into insignificance. The stats of the season, I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about at some point this weekend, because Monza usually delivers at least 1 safety car period, but the stats that matter are all about the Drivers' Championship. As I said, it was a 3-horse race coming into Monza, with Josh Files leading the championship from Julien Brichet. Andreas Beckmann in another of the target competition Hyundai i30Ns in 3rd place, but after qualifying, Andreas has been eliminated because there are now 80 points on offer, 40 for each race victory. And as things currently stand, Andreas Beckmann, 3rd in the series, is now 83 points behind Josh Files, and so can no longer take the title. I did say mathematically, it was always going to be a long shot, because Andreas would have needed to win both races with both Julien Brichet, there he is, and Josh Files not scoring any points. But indeed, Andreas Beckmann working with Josh Files to give him an aerodynamic tow in qualifying earlier today, and that's resulted in both of them going through to Q2. Andreas having a problem with a drive shaft and qualifying 12th, but Josh Files kind of in the middle of the field, really. He's 9th on the grid for race 1, but that means he'll start race 2 from the front row of the grid. The biggest news, however, is that Julien Brichet, you just saw, will start race 1 from pole. And that also means that he took 5 points off Josh Files, and so narrowed the gap to 43 points. Josh Files on 282. I'm sure that Alessandro, our race TV director, will show us the points in a moment. But Josh Files on 282, Julien Brichet on 239. So the gap between the pair, 43 points, with, as I said earlier, 80 points on offer. We'll do the full grid for you as the cars set off on their green flag lap. Below me from the commentary box, the safety car has just taken off from its standby position at the front of the grid, and so I'm looking down at the first 1, 2, 3, just about 4 rows I can see from my vantage point at the top of the grandstand. I can see the front row of the grid being Julien Brichet and Aurélien Comte, a Peugeot 1-2. Santiago Urrutia will be delighting our viewers in South America, the Uruguayan having put the Audi on the second row of the grid in P3. and alongside him the similar car of Russia's Klim Gavrilov. And Gavrilov, in fact, a TCR Russia veteran almost, if I can say that. If you can be a veteran at only 19 years of age. Reappeared, he was with us in TCR Europe in Spa earlier on this year, finished 15th in race 2, and has done 3 years, in TCR Russia, 7th in 2017, 5th in 2018, 3rd in the series this year, having recorded 3 wins. And so Gavrilov choosing to end the year, because of course Russia is already over. Gavrilov ending the season with this second appearance in TCR Europe here in Monza. So 4th on the grid, Teddy Claret will start from 5th on the grid in yet another Peugeot. So after the domination of Hyundai yesterday in free practice, bit of a surprise today, to put it mildly. Peugeot's 1 and 2, Audi's 3 and 4, a Peugeot in 5th. Then it's Dan Lloyd in the Honda in 6th, Gianni Morbidelli in a Volkswagen Golf in 7th, Gilles Magnus in another Audi, the 3rd Audi in the top 8, in fact. Gilles Magnus P8, Josh Files then P9, and Maxime Potti P10. So he will start on pole tomorrow in the reversed grid race 2. But only 2 Hyundais went through to Q2, which was a surprise. And if you're a subscriber to conspiracy theorists, then you might just think that the Peugeots were sandbagging yesterday, not really showing their hand, and who can blame them, letting Hyundai think that they had the upper hand and blitzed it this morning. 3 Peugeots in the top 5 positions. Having spoken to Josh Files, very philosophical Josh Files, you have to say, earlier on, he was saying, watch for Teddy Claret starting strongly to try and get between the 2 Audis. And if they can get up into a Peugeot 1, 2, 3, watch Comte and Claret defend the rear of Julien Brichet's car. Because Brichet, if he gets the maximum 40 points in this race, and Files, we don't know, gets tangled up in something or finishes low down the order, then the championship is looking really spicy, looking towards the final round tomorrow. There is Gianni Morbidelli. Not the best season for West Coast racing. Morbidelli, that stunning performance here in TCR International a couple of years ago, in the very early days, in fact, of TCR International, where he scored the maximum 55 points, 5 points for pole, and then 25 for each race victory. Things now very different, because we have points right the way down to 15th place. But I think Gianni Morbidelli is resigned not to have such a great weekend here this weekend. There is the grid then, the first 4 rows, which is what I can see from the commentary box. Brichet and Comte on row 1. Urrutia and Gavrilov on row 2. Claret and Lloyd on row 3. Morbidelli and Gilles Magnus row 4. Files and Potti row 5. John Filippi and Andreas Beckmann row 6. Jimmy Claret and Luca Filippi row 7. Row 8 is the Moroccan driver making his debut in the competition, Sami Taufik, 17 years old from Morocco in another Audi. Alongside him, Luca Engstler, Mato Homola and Victor Davidovsky. Abdullah Ali Al-Khelaifi is alongside Nelson Ponciatici. It's slight surprise. Nathan Biel, Ponciatici's teammate in the M Racing Hyundai, is alongside Dominic Baumann. I also need to mention towards the back of the grid, Stian Paulsen, there he is, look, 25th position on the grid. Stian Paulsen returning to the series for this final round. But Paulsen, you may remember, picked up a grid penalty in his last race, and so that's the reason he's at the back of the grid, or towards the back of the grid, because right at the back, another new entry for this weekend, Australia's Josh Burden in the Brutal Fish Honda. And unfortunately for him, he did something like half a lap in free practice yesterday. The engine let go, and so I think I'm right in saying, first Australian TCR Europe competitor having a bitterly disappointing first day, an engine change, and that of course put him to the back of the grid for this first race. There then is our championship leader, Josh Files, aiming, I suspect, to stay out of trouble. You can never really know here at Monza. That first chicane has a slight change to it since we were here last. TCR Europe 2018 came to Monza for its penultimate round, and then we ended the year in Barcelona, which of course saw Mikel Azcona crowned as champion. Who will leave Monza this weekend as the 2019 TCR Europe champion. Will it be Josh Files? Will it be Julien Brichet? It's just down now to those two men. And what effect, if any, will the other drivers... You can almost sense the tension, can't you? Cars running out of awnings here this weekend because the GT Open cars with whom we're running. There it is. Thank you, Alessandro. Confirmation then, 282 points is Josh Files' total. Brichet on 239. Beckman out of things, as I said, 83 points behind on 199. Nelson Ponciatici could still cause a bit of an upset. Currently fourth in the standings. Santiago Urrutia currently fifth, but only 8 points behind Ponciatici. So still a lot to play for, even if you take the battle for the Drivers' Championship out of the equation. No Alex Morgan. I mentioned that he was hoping to return in the Renault Megane. A lot of development work going on that car, as I mentioned 3 weeks ago at Barcelona, but the suspension development work not completed, I suspect, to Alex's liking. And so even though there is a Renault here this weekend, it is yet another new driver, another new country for TCR Europe. Welcome Guilherme Salas from Brazil, who is in the sole Vukovic Motorsport Renault Megane RS. But Alex Morgan electing to sit this one out and concentrate on putting a program together for next year. M Racing, their usual two cars for Nelson Ponciatici and Nathan Biel. But French eyes will be on this man, Julien Brichet, the boss of Peugeot Motorsport, is here in Monza this weekend to see if his man can take the title. Andrea Adamo, the now iconic Hyundai Motorsport boss, is either here already or is on his way. So he will be hoping that Josh Files will potentially not only become a four-time champion to go with his 2 TCR Germany titles and his TCR Middle East title, but if he wins TCR Europe, then potentially also TCR Benelux. Confused? Me too. It's one of those weekends, folks. Hopefully the stories will unfold, but the one we're looking for at the moment is very simple. The start of this first race at Monza. What will happen to the front row of the grid? Julien Brichet on pole on the right of your screen. The red lights are on, they go off, we are underway. A good start from Brichet, another good start from Comte, and Dan Lloyd also up the right-hand side, the left-hand side of your screen, as they head down to what is always a pinch point in this first lap, the first chicane, the Retifilio. Prima Variante, as the circuit commentator has been describing it all weekend, and Urrutia together with Dan Lloyd. So Lloyd up into fourth behind Urrutia. And the predicted Claret, or the threatened Claret, and that is, there's smoke from one of the Hyundais. That is Luca Filippi in the BRC car. As into the Roger chicane goes our race leader, Julien Brichet. All neatly through at the moment. Somebody ran wide, but it seems that everybody, certainly the two championship protagonists, are through safely. Dan Lloyd going up alongside. In fact, that's Claret coming back at him. But Lloyd will have the line, I suspect, for the Lesmo. Gavrilov it is, the Russian in the silver grey Audi. Not giving any quarter to Gilles Magnus, who's been with us all season. They head down to the Ascari chicane for the first time. 23 minutes plus 1 lap, remember, race distance in TCR Europe. There is Claret, there's Magnus. Gavrilov getting a nudge from Dan Lloyd, who's dropping back down the order slightly. There is Matto Homola. Behind Homola is Maxime Potti, who will be on pole for race 2 tomorrow. So there is Lloyd. Great start from him. Not so much now, though. Gavrilov goes up the inside once again. There's nudging as they go into that. And that's Morbidelli, I think, in the 45 car. That's Gianni Morbidelli, who made contact with Maxime Potti. And I think coming off the worst was the number 8 car, which is Luca Engstler. Originally, going back a couple of races, Luca Engstler very much in contention for the title, but no longer. through the first chicane for the first time, and that's the, if you look in the background, there is now a cut through with the red plastic barrels. There it is in the top of your screen. That's been put in since last year, so there are now effectively 3 ways through that first chicane. There's an escape road, there's the chicane itself, and there's that new cut through with the red barrels. So Brichet and Comte 1 and 2, Urrutia with them, Claret is 4th, Magnus 5th, Files 6th now, Lloyd 7th, Gavrilov and indeed Engstler in the pits, as I said, having come off the worst in that clash in the Parabolica on lap 1. So behind Files is Lloyd, Gavrilov, Andreas Beckmann, Homola, Potti, John Filippi, Dominic Baumann, Victor Davidovsky and Gianni Morbidelli. Those are the point scoring positions at the moment, first down to 15th. Luca Filippi having come in. So 2 of the Hyundais in the wars on lap 1. Josh Files diving up the inside of Gilles Magnus to take 4th place. So Files already having made up from 9th to 4th. We'll start doing the sums in a second, but I don't want to tempt fate at this stage. The 2 Peugeots then together. Comte, though, no threat to Brichet, having already told us that he's there to help Brichet take the title. Lloyd has the line up the inside of Teddy Claret as they come out of the Parabolica onto the start-finish straight. The Claret won't back down, so Lloyd tucks in behind the Peugeot. Files up to 4th then, confirmation. Brutal Fish running no fewer than 4 cars this weekend. Martin Rieber, team boss. Dan Lloyd as per usual. I mentioned Josh Burden in the 3rd of the Brutal Fish cars. They're also running Paul Ip from Hong Kong. That's Jessica Beckman, I think, cutting the chicane. And contact between Gavrilov and Dan Lloyd on lap 1 under investigation. Paul Ip, if you see a Honda running in what look well, they are Castrol colours. That's a car that's being loaned to the Brutal Fish team. I think it's one of the cars that took part in the TCR 500 endurance race at Spa last weekend. But Paul Ip, founder of KCMG endurance racing, having done a fair few TCR races in the Far East, but having dipped his toe into TCR Europe for this time. Let's have a watch back at the start. Everybody cleanly away from what I can make out. No repeat of the dramas that we saw last time out. There is Paul Ip, in fact, in the Castrol engine car. Slight wheel spin from Julien Brichet as he gets off the line. And right at the back of the field, I can't quite, or couldn't quite make out. And there was some bumping and banging. And there, as you see, the new cut through. And several drivers, that's an angle we hadn't seen before, several drivers taking to that new cut through, and one of the M Racing cars, I think it was possibly Ponciatici, taking the straight route on, which was the, well held by Morbidelli, but Engstler coming off worse of that incident on lap 1. And Andreas Beckmann it was, in fact, I got the wrong Beckmann. How could I possibly get the 2 mixed up? Jessica's car's got the bright orange lipstick around the radiator, and it's bright green, yellow-green for her brother Andreas. First and second then, Brichet with Aurélien Comte as his rear guard. A gap opening up to Urrutia, another gap to Files. Then it's Magnus with Claret, Teddy Claret that is, doing battle with him. That's the battle for 5th. Then it's Lloyd, just tucked up behind them. There is Urrutia, Files, Magnus, Lloyd going through, so Lloyd making up a place. So Magnus still P5, Lloyd now P6, Claret having dropped to 7th. Then Andreas Beckmann, there he is. Then Gavrilov, Homola. That's your top 10 currently, with just under 16 minutes plus a lap of this race remaining. Shall I tempt fate, I wonder? If things stay as they are, then Julien Brichet will have 279 points. versus 3:09 for Josh Files for if he finishes fourth. So 30 points the difference going into tomorrow's final race with 40 points on offer. Still a fair way to go in this race. However, Julien Brichet knows that he's got Aurélien Comte behind him in another Peugeot, and Comte, as I was saying earlier, told us after qualifying that he wants to do all he can to help Julien take the title. Both racing for Peugeot this weekend very much, even though it is customer racing. They're racing for two different teams. Dan Lloyd going up the inside of Gilles Magnus. That's another position for the Brit. Dan Lloyd, twice race winner, was handed the victory, if you'll remember, because of the penalties. This is great. Lloyd, I think, has the line. Magnus trying to go up the outside as they head down to the first chicane. Who's going to bottle out first? Lloyd has the line, and indeed, Magnus, I think, thinks better of it. So Lloyd takes the position. Lloyd then P5. As I was saying, Lloyd handed the victory at Oschersleben because of penalties, but took the win last time out in Barcelona in race 2 in his own merits, so one on the road. That's Gavrilov getting it all squirrely and through the gravel and rejoining safely, thankfully, just behind Matto Homola. Gavrilov 10th now, Homola 9th. Claret taking a little look at Gilles Magnus. And also he's got Andreas Beckmann behind him. So this then is the scrap from 5th down to 9th. 5th currently Lloyd, 6th Magnus, 7th Teddy Claret. In the predominantly red Peugeot. Right behind Claret is Andreas Beckmann. Homola then 9th. And then a gap from Homola back to Gavrilov in 10th. Gavrilov coming under pressure from Dominic Baumann in the Target Hyundai. Yet another of the Target Hyundais. Where are they all? Jessica Beckmann back in P24. So whether she's had an issue. Oh, Martin Rieber. And that is the other Russian competing in TCR Europe this weekend, making his debut in TCR Europe, Gregory Burlutsky. And Burlutsky, again, another regular from TCR Russia. Carville Racing, the 91 car. So two Russians then here this weekend. Burlutsky in the Volkswagen. He finished 9th in TCR Russia this year in the 91 car. And position changes towards the bottom of the top 10. Homola up to 7th. Teddy Claret dropping. Andreas Beckmann in there as well. Gavrilov still 10th. But that little battle that we were watching, and again, two cars in the back of your shot taking the escape road at the first chicane. Potty then. That's the battle for 16th place. Just ahead of Maxime Potty is Stian Paulsen. There they are, coming down towards the Roger chicane. Varianti Secundi. 3 chicanes here on the Monza circuit. Oh, contact there. That's the bruising encounter. That's the result of the battle between Andreas Beckmann and Teddy Claret. But now with a gap of around, well, it's 6/10 between first and second. Brichet 0.625 up on Comte. Then there's a gap of around 2.5 seconds back to Urrutia. Files is still 4th, Lloyd 5th, Magnus 6th, Homola 7th, Andreas Beckmann 8th, Teddy Claret 9th, Gavrilov still 10th, and then the remainder of the points positions are John Filippi, Dominic Baumann, Victor Davidovsky, Nelson Ponciatici and Gianni Morbidelli. So, once again, as if I hadn't jinxed things enough earlier on, there is John Filippi with Dominic Baumann diving up the inside. So Baumann taking 11th away from Jean Filippi. And as I was saying, just to complete what I was saying, if things stay as they are, the battle for the driver's title will remain alive into race 2, the final race of the season, round 14. There will be 30 points between Josh Files and Julien Brichet. 40 points on offer. Davidovski slipping down to 14th. So, a drive-through penalty for Gianni Morbidelli for contact with Nelson Pontiatisi. So, I was saying earlier that Gianni wasn't expecting a brilliant weekend, and it's just gone from fairly mediocre to worse. So Gianni Morbidelli in the West Coast Racing Volkswagen gets a drive-through for contact at turn 1 with the M Racing Hyundai of Nelson Pontiatisi. Pontiatisi currently behind Morbidelli in 14th. That's Davidovski running wide. That's the reason that Davidovski dropped positions. He's now down in 15th, although he will gain a place because of that drive-through for Morbidelli. Ooh. That's Baumann going up the inside of Gavrilov. So Baumann, there is Claret. Claret is 10th. Baumann is 11th. But Gavrilov has dropped back. So Gavrilov, in fact, Teddy Claret now 9th, I think, ahead of Teddy Claret. Indeed, no, the other way round. Claret up to 9th, Baumann 10th, Gavrilov dropping back, just ahead of John Filippi in 12th. Dan Lloyd, though, staying ahead of Gilles Magnus. Homola takes a look up the inside as they go for the right-hander at the Parabolica. And in the past, Gianni Morbidelli showed just what a masterclass, showed the perfect way to take the Parabolica, which then spits you back out onto the long, long drag down the start-finish straight. I can remember the first time we came here for TCR International, 3 successive laps heading down towards the chicane. We had 2 cars alongside each other, then 3, then 4. On this occasion, Matto Homola bravely goes up the inside of Gilles Magnus for that chicane. There is Davidovski, Paulsen. Morbidelli has decided not even to take the drive-through. That's it, park up, race over for him. Homola up into 6th now, as a result of that move past Magnus. There is Homola, there is Magnus. Andreas Beckmann, Claret, Teddy, then Baumann, then Gavrilov. And that's the battle at the bottom end of the top 10, in fact. Magnus in 7th, Andreas 8th, Teddy Claret 9th, Baumann 10th, Gavrilov 11th now. This then, the battle for the final podium spot. Josh Files flashing his lights at Santiago Urrutia. Just takes a little dive up. This is the drag down to the Ascari chicane. Urrutia has the line, though. So can Josh Files take another 3 points? Currently in 4th, which will give him 27 points. 3rd would give him 30. You can see from that shot down the back straight, down towards the Parabolica, that the leading pair now 3.8 seconds clear of Santiago Urrutia, who is not yielding to Josh Files. Around the Parabolica they come. Files has the line, though. They'll go down the start-finish straight, side by side. The battle of wills. Who will blink first? There goes Brichet. There goes Comte. And it looks as though Files has the line. Urrutia not giving up, though. Remember, it's the right-hander at the chicane, and so Files will have the line. That then is 3rd position, changing hands. Josh Files picks his moment, goes through the chicane, and so Josh Files moves us up into 3rd position, which potentially is the best he can hope for. Just over 6.5 minutes plus 1 lap of this race remaining. And Julien Brichet, there he is, our race leader. 3/10 clear of Aurélien Comte, but Comte is not going to do anything to risk that 1-2 for Peugeot. Then it's a gap of nearly 5 seconds back to Files. Lloyd and Homola still scrapping for 5th. This is the moment at the chicane that Files just noses ahead. It was the battle of the bravest heading down towards the chicane, and Files picks his moment. Albert, the race engineer at Target Competition, applauding his driver's move, as Martin Rieber, team boss of Brutal Fish. In fact, both cars. There's Josh Burden, the Australian, going through. So Burden now 19th, ahead of Rieber. Both, of course, outside the points. There is Files, there is Urrutia. Then a gap to Lloyd. Behind Lloyd is Homola, then Magnus. Behind Magnus, Andreas Beckmann. Through the Ascari chicane, Nelson Ponciatici makes up another position, up to 12th now, ahead of John Filippi. Jimmy Claret makes up another position, takes 17th away from Maxime Potti. So what's Homola going to do? Lloyd on the brakes going into the Parabolica. Very wide line from Gilles Magnus in the Audi. The field spreading out now. With that leading pair now, it would appear invincible at the head of the field. So this then is how things will stand. 3:12 for Files, 2:79 if things stay as they are. That then is the scrap for the drivers' points. One race remaining. And so I think it would be remiss of you to miss things tomorrow when the TCR Europe season for 2019 comes to a close. We're almost guaranteed fireworks because Josh Files will be starting from second on the grid. Julien Brichet, reverse grid, remember, so he'll be starting from P10, but Julien Brichet does have a habit of carving his way through the field, and we've seen certainly today just how strong the Peugeots really are when they're not sandbagging. And Matto Homola goes up the inside of Dan Lloyd. Matto Homola takes 5th place away from Dan Lloyd. Ooh, roughhousing a little, just squeezing Dan Lloyd out onto the grass, and so Gilles Magnus also pops through, as does Andreas Beckmann. So Lloyd loses 3 positions in just the second Lesmo corner. Gilles Magnus just having a little look around the outside of Matto Homola, but Dan Lloyd must be kicking himself. Just left the door open fractionally, ran wide, and 3 cars went through. Quickest lap of the race, Josh Files, having done a 1:57.748. Lapping currently at about 1:58.7, so about a second slower or thereabouts. Brichet won't care about that. The clock is ticking down. A little over 3 minutes plus 1 lap of this race remaining here in Monza. Julien Brichet, the only thing he could do this weekend was get quickest in qualifying to get 5 points, to win race 1, which he appears to be on course to do. Bodywork flapping on the grille on the bonnet of Gilles Magnus's car. Magnus passes Homola for 5th once again. This battle is far from decided because Dan Lloyd has also passed Andreas Beckmann to regain 1 position up to 7th. So with 1st and 2nd cruising, it would appear, these 2 battles for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th are well worth keeping an eye on in the race's closing stages. Gilles Magnus has the position. So, ahead of Homola. And Beckmann has come back at Lloyd. That position has just changed again. Homola clattering across the curbs. And was there slight contact between Andreas Beckmann and Dan Lloyd? Lloyd just takes another little look up the inside of Andreas. Remember, Dan was Andreas's driver coach last year when they both competed in TCR UK. Dan Lloyd has the place, has the position, or does he? Down to the Ascari one more time. Magnus ahead of Homola. Lloyd now, side by side, in fact 3 abreast, because Dominic Baumann has joined in that scrap. Lloyd takes the position back, then it's Andreas, then it's Dominic. So Lloyd up to 7th, Beckmann down to 8th, Baumann still 9th. Then a slight gap. Matto Homola still scrapping with Magnus and has gone through. Matto Homola on the back straight down towards the Parabolica. Homola takes P5 once again. Up front, what are the gaps doing? I think 2 more laps, because the next time the leader crosses the start-finish line will be the start of the final lap, and Dan Lloyd's got a problem. Dan Lloyd is slowing, a puncture. Front left puncture, Dan Lloyd's race is over, and he pulls over. That is desperately sad for Dan Lloyd. There's contact between Magnus and Hommler now going into the chicane. And Dan Lloyd having problems yesterday with a puncture and a gearbox issue, and a puncture ending his race after some thrilling battles at the second half of the top 10. The gaps at the head of the field, though, settling down. Still around 4/10 between Brichet and Comte. That's going to end the way we know it'll end. Then there's about 3.8 seconds back to Files. Another 2.5 back to Urrutia. This is Gavrilov and Pontiatisi. Slow-mo of Magnus and Hommler. Oh, just a little clip from Magnus on the rear of Hommeler's car going through the chicane, but Hommler won't care. First, second. Third is Files. Fourth is Urrutia. Disappointed, I suspect, not to finish the year. At least the penultimate race on the podium. Still one more tomorrow. There goes Hommler. There's Magnus. Andreas Beckmann ahead of Dominic Baumann. Teddy Claret now 9th. Pontiatisi 10th. Gavrilov is 11th. And 112 and 22. 112 is Jimmy Claret and 22 is Josh Burden, for an incident that we didn't see, I don't think. So the clock has hit 0. The next time Julien Brichet crosses the finish line will be the start of the final lap. And that is Nelson Pontiatisi with a slightly battered Hyundai as Gavrilov runs wide. Brichet is on the final lap now, down to the chicane for the final time. Julien Brichet, Peugeot 308. Aurélien Comte, Peugeot 308. And Comte has played the perfect rear gunner to Julien Brichet, having defended the rear, although the battle for third between Urrutia and Files meant that the leading pair could head up the road. But Julien Brichet, having mastered the early part of the season, winner of race 2 in Hockenheim, winner of race 2 in Spa. Of course, the opening round at Hungaroring, excuse me. I've got them out of order. Brichet then, 3-time winner so far this year. Most successful driver so far this year in TCR Europe, and now just half a lap or so away from recording his 4th win of the year. In total, from the 12 races we've had so far, 8 race winners. And that number will stay the same, even though we'll be at the end of race 13 in a minute or so. Through the Ascari chicane for the final time. There's now the back straight, the parabolica, and the sprint for the line remaining. And Julien Brichet, it looks as though win number 4 is now only a matter of time. Aurélien Comte will complete a 1-2 for Peugeot. And there in the background is championship leader Josh Files, who I suspect will be happy with the job done to get from P9 on the grid to finish P3. Surely, Josh Files will be picking up the TCR Europe title tomorrow. But the weaving race winner, delighted I'm sure, Julien Brichet crosses the line to win his 4th TCR Europe race of the year. 2nd is Aurélien Comte, 3rd is Josh Files, 4th is Santiago Urrutia in the Audi. 5th will be Matto Hommler, there he is. 6th will be Gilles Magnus. And then a sprint for the line, 3 abreast. Behind Magnus, Andreas Beckmann, Dominic Baumann, Teddy Claret, Nelson Pontiatisi, John Filippi. Stian Paulsen up to 12th. That's a good result for Stian after a frustrating weekend so far. Klim Gavrilov finishes 13th. And then Sami Tufik, I mentioned earlier in the race, from Morocco. He'll score a couple of points for finishing 14th. And then Viktor Davidovski in the Honda finishing in 15th, and so picking up 1 point. However, it's all about the points at the top of the leaderboard. 40 points for Julien Brichet, which means that he now has 279 points. For finishing 3rd, Josh Files will be on 312, picking up 30. So far this weekend, Julien Brichet has taken 15 points off Josh Files in that scrap for the TCR Europe Drivers' title. So the slowing down lap then, after a an interesting penultimate race to the series. Not quite perhaps as frantic as we'd expected, particularly in the run down to the chicane on lap 1. Of course, we still have the small matter of one race left tomorrow. Race 1 of the weekend is usually, not always, but usually when drivers try to preserve their cars for the whole race weekend. There's no point in binning it in race 1 and taking 0 points for the weekend. Tomorrow, as we saw in Barcelona last year, a very different matter. And people can take risks and go for gaps that perhaps they wouldn't normally go for in the first race of a weekend. But Josh Files has done what he needed to do. I don't think there was ever any doubt that Julien Brichet would take a lights to flag win, particularly with Aurélien Comte up there with him to defend the rear of the blue Peugeot. But Julien Brichet in the number 24 Peugeot 308 takes win number 4 of the season. Josh Files, another podium finish for him. The consistency of Josh Files is actually quite remarkable this year. So what does that mean? 2 wins, 2 seconds, and now 3 thirds for Josh Files. He's only finished outside the points twice so far this season, and the low point for him was Spa, where he left with only 3 points from the whole weekend. And if you'll remember, a big accident, a late night, in fact an overnight rebuild for the guys from Target Competition, just netting the 3 points. But that's all in the past. Josh Files, all that matters to him now is that he will go into the final race of the season with a decent lead over Julien Brichet. Let's recap then the result here in Monza for round 13 of the championship. Or maybe not. I was expecting a result caption there. But Julien Brichet heads for the Mini Parc Fermé under the podium here in Monza. On pit lane commentary duties, interview duties this weekend is Lisa Leyland. She will be trying to catch up with Julien Brichet very shortly. There he is into the Mini Parc Fermé. And will be joined very shortly by Aurélien Comte and Josh Files before they head up the steps onto the iconic podium here in Monza. What do you think? I thought he'd look happier than that, but he's not out of the car yet. He will, I suspect, be thumping the roof of the car, punching the air. Go on, Julien. Make me out to be a liar, why don't you? Does seem very low-key. Now that's the boss of Peugeot Sport, who's here this weekend to support Julien. Now what was said between the pair? There is Aurélien. Thanks for doing such a great job, mate, says Julien. And Josh Files will be parked up in the Target Competition Hyundai at the other side of that Mini Parc Fermé. And we can just see the Union flag on the roof of Josh Files' car. So he's there. He's out of the car. I can see his crash helmet. And there we are. We're finally getting smiles now from Julien Brichet. I was rather worried that he was almost disappointed with that victory. It's all going to come down then to that final race of the season. And you have to say, from starting from P2, Josh Files is in the driving seat. No pun intended. Let's see if we can catch up with our race winner in amongst that scrum. There is the race result caption that I was expecting. Julien Brichet then takes the victory from Aurélien Comte by just over 0.4 of a second. There's the gap then to Files, a further 4.3 or thereabouts back from Comte. Urrutia, Hommel, Magnus, Andreas Beckmann, Baumann, Teddy Claret, and Nelson Ponciatici round off your top 10 with under 20 seconds, in fact under 19 seconds separating those 10. John Philippi, Stian Paulsen, Klim Gavrilov, Sami Tofik and Viktor Davidovsky complete the point-scoring positions. And then 16th, Josh Burden. Congratulations to him, having made the long journey from Australia up to Monza for his first race in TCR Europe. And I think potentially Josh Burden's flag is wrong on the results captured, because I'm sure that was a Hong Kong flag alongside. Definitely, having spoken to him yesterday, he's Australian. Right the way down then, frustration for Dan Lloyd. Okay, let's head down then to the pit lane. Let's hear from our race winner. Julien Brichet is talking to Lisa Leyland.
Julien Brichet, congratulations. A good start, leading the whole way. Your driver's title remains alive until the final race tomorrow. Tell us about your race. Alfonso.
Oui, on a pris un bon départ là, avec Aurélien, donc pour nous ça s'est bien passé. On a fait 2 beaux premiers tours, on a réussi à faire le trou sur la concurrence. On a pu gérer un petit peu notre course comme on voulait.
Thank you. Good luck for the final race.
Our apologies for that. We seem to have some kind of audio breakup in the middle of Lisa's interview with Julien. From what we did get, we had a good start with Aurélien. We managed to get a good start in the first couple of laps, and I suspect that's where we lost the feed from our pit lane microphone. Apologies for that, but I think you get the general idea. Julien Brichet is, in theory, happy with his work. He did seem a little low-key coming out of the car, but this is the position then in the points table. 33 points separate Josh Files from Julien Brichet. And as I said earlier, only those 2 men can now take the driver's title. Andreas Beckmann now 95 points behind Josh Files. Urrutia up to 4th. Ponciatici drops a place. Magnus and Homola move above Luca Engstler. And Aurélien Comte, thanks to that 2nd place, moves above Dan Lloyd. Those are your top 10. 159 points separate those those 10 drivers. Maxime Potty dropping out of the 10. Tom Coronel, should have mentioned him earlier on. Tom's probably watching at home in the Netherlands. Tom Coronel not here this weekend. He had engine temperature issues in Barcelona and so elected to miss this event because of the risk of taking an engine change penalty. So round 13, the penultimate round of TCR Europe 2019 has delivered everything that it needed to, really. We keep the championship fight alive until the final round tomorrow. There were also incidents, and not that many accidents, to be fair. A rather genteel penultimate round of the series. What then will happen in tomorrow's final race? As we head to the podium for the last but one time this season, applause from Target Competition. As I said right at the beginning of the show, they've already secured the team's title. Can Josh Files make it a double tomorrow by taking the driver's crown? But there on the top step of the podium, our race winner from race 1, excuse me, from France. And so we'll have the French national anthem in his honor, Julien Brichet. So La Marseillaise one more time for the 4th time this year for Julien Brichet to mark the race victory. Mauro Zonta from Yokohama Motorsport presents a rather grand trophy to our race winner. Congratulations too also for the other men on the podium, together with the representative of Julien's own team, JSB Competition, as a representative of the winning team. He gets his trophy from TCR Europe promoter, Paulo Ferreira. And again, handshakes for Aurélien Comte and for Josh Files. Mauro again presenting Aurélien Comte with his second place trophy. And Paulo again with the trophy for Josh, third place. And also this weekend, as I mentioned earlier on, is a round of TCR Benelux. And so Yves Baclaine, who is the president of the Belgian Motorsport Federation, presents the trophy for first place in TCR Benelux to Julien Brichet, who will be weighed down with trophies heading back to France. But the all-important question, will he add the TCR Europe Drivers' Championship trophy to that haul? Josh Files will have something to say about that tomorrow in the 14th and final round of the season. But there's a small matter of some champagne spraying to go. Let's get the photographs done first. Now, I think that's Marcus Gummera, because it's the one not wearing glasses. The twins, of course, who run Target Competition. There at last we get the champagne. Josh and Julien giving it large. Those are the two men who will go head-to-head tomorrow in the fight for the TCR Europe Drivers' title. And so, all being well, we will see the title decided. The race starts, another 23-lap race tomorrow starting at 11:35 Italian time. We'll see you then.
Ed è una gara che questa mattina ha dato veramente dei bei colpi di scena, è stata molto combattuta e vede alla via in questo momento 14 vetture, 14 FIA Platinum Cup. Questa mattina abbiamo eletto il vincitore della stagione 2019, ora chiaramente i piloti sono liberi di correre le ultime due gare senza più fare nessun conto della classifica. Con il numero 68 Giacomo